Time to address the overheating problem on the Maestro. The fan switch has packed in and I'm kind of regulating it with the heater at the moment, which isn't ideal. In this box we have got a brand new radiator, kindly donated by Peter again, and I've got various other bits and pieces just to get this job all done and hopefully cure this problem. Big seed tray here, there's no drain holes in it. This is ideal for a coolant catchment tray. I haven't got a lot of space to get it underneath the car, but that should catch hopefully all of the coolant. We shall see. Obviously some coolant and some deionized water or distilled water, and in the box there a brand new radiator. Now, one of the problems you can see immediately is all of this green here. This is the copper of the radiator, which is basically falling off. This radiator is probably the original and it's not in great condition. I've also probably got to replace the factory wire clip. You can see somebody's put a silvery Jubilee clip in there. So I've got some replacement ones of those. And hopefully replacing the radiator isn't too tricky. I think we have to take off this panel here, which is just held on with a couple of bolts and the grill, lift this up, and then we should be able to take the radiator out. But first we need to drain out the old coolant. Not a lot came out of that, but then again it is a tiny engine, so that's probably why. Bit murky. To remove this panel, you've got 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. They go into captive nuts, and then you have another bolt here, and the same on this side, just next to that headlight adjuster. There's also 2 screws up here, these black ones, and they connect your cold air feed, and then this should just lift up and I should then be able to just get the radiator out, all being well. I haven't disconnected the bonnet release and I don't want to, so I'm just going to put these bolts safe and we'll just swing this out the way. Screwdriver on the floor. There we go, access to the radiator, which I believe should just lift up. Yes, it does. Okay. hose disconnected, and then the other item to disconnect is the fan switch here. This switch does seem to have died on this car, which is a bit annoying. The fan still works, but that doesn't. And I will have to disconnect the fan as well. And then this tiny, tiny radiator will lift out the car. And there we go. Oh, having a wee. Just let that drain out. It's a bit like a Japanese car, really. So I'll have to transfer the fan off here, because of course the new one doesn't have a fan, and the new radiator is slightly bigger. So this is the new radiator that I've got, slightly wider than the old one, slightly different design on the ends, but otherwise should be a straight swap. They did change the design on the radiators over the years. This one should hopefully have a bit more cooling capacity, and it's in much better condition than the one I've taken out. I'll just check it actually fits in the holes, which I'm pretty sure it will. Yep. Once I've got that all connected up properly, that should be fine. Here we go then, I've got the fan off. There's 2 bolts and 1 bolt. These are part of the radiator itself. And unsurprisingly, they're quite rusty. 2 of them sheared off, 1 came off fine, so I'm going to have a rummage in the bits box and see if I've got some replacement nuts for that. The biggest problem with this radiator really is corrosion. It doesn't seem to be particularly blocked, which is nice, but there's a big clump of fins missing here. There's a lot of just damage and build-up of crap, which is kind of what you expect from this age. And again, this side is gently collapsing. So I need to salvage this hose so I can transfer that onto the new one. And this is just scrap. There is no point trying to do anything with this. It is shot. One of the other things I needed to do was correct the thermostat. It was pointed out to me that the thermostat should be sat up in this part, not down in the bottom where I've put it. Hasn't done any harm, it's just something to correct since I'm disturbing everything at the moment. I'm not replacing the gaskets because I've only just done them, and honestly they're still in really good shape, so just leave them be, make sure they're back in the right order. It's such a weird contraption, this. I have this bracket thing. I'm going to take that all the way off, I think. Yes, it's supposed to go through that one as well. all back together like it should be. Been putting that off until I got a new radiator to go in. Next job is to flush the system through and just make sure it's as clean as I can get it. Yeah, flushing the system is a very good idea. I'm not sure where that has been hiding in the system, but that's pretty grim. Almost clear now, just a few little rust flakes coming out. There wasn't very much coolant in there, but there also doesn't seem to be any additives. It just seems to be very weak coolant, and it's just rusted the block a little bit. So that's fairly ordinary. There's no nasty surprises coming out, which I'm grateful for. So I'm going to keep flushing this through. Got this running clear enough now that it's just plain water coming out. It will probably need flushing again sooner than you would normally do a coolant change, just because this is the first time it looks like it's been done in a while. Let's get everything connected back up again. We're all back together again. I found some suitable nuts and washers for on here. I had just enough. I didn't have any flanged ones like came off, so I've just used a separate nut and washer. It should be okay. The fan connector down here, I gave a squirt of this stuff, which hopefully will just make sure that connection is nice and clean as long as possible. I did the same on the fan switch, which is just there. New Jubilee clips, or hose clamps rather, here, there and there, because the old wire ones, a couple of them actually sheared through. I thought that might happen, so I was prepared. This one I didn't think to replace. That's actually two short ones that a previous owner has connected to make into a big one. It works. I'm leaving it for now. It wasn't leaking before. I have no reason to believe it will leak now. So I'm going to fill this back up. The radiator does slot in on the original holes. The pipes aren't a perfect fit, but they're close enough. And the plastic blind at the end, which is this jobby here, the new radiator is actually just a bit too wide for it, so I'll be leaving that off for now. I think Peter said he had a spare one that's shorter, so we'll see if we can do an exchange. This here is the rubbish, and you can see the heads have just snapped off these original wire clamps. They've done well to last as long as they have, really, but I won't trust them for this particular job. I'll be happy to see the back of this, because I think this is, well, not a problem now, but I think it could have been. Let's find out how much coolant actually goes in it and put that in. Okay, it turns out that this takes 6.6 litres of coolant. So we'll go 50-50 on the deionized and the coolant that I've got, and that should be good. be a little bit left in the system, because you never manage to drain it fully out unless you're doing an engine rebuild. But let's start it up and see how much more it wants. Now, after a bit of fiddling about, I've got it running. It was a bit grumpy, so I had to raise the idle just a little bit. Now it seems fine. I have had that before on a car that's not had a coolant change in a very long time. I don't know what would cause it, but a quick turn of the idle screw and it seems alright now. The exhaust is still blowing. I still haven't been able to fully fix that, but this sounds okay. I'm just waiting for the gauge to get to halfway, because the fan should kick in at that point, all being well. But it's going to take a little bit of time. Okay, everything buttoned up, running lovely, and I got it up to temperature, but the fan wasn't coming on. I'm recording this after the fact. It's just a bit easier to show you without everything running. If I have the car running at the moment, it's dropped below the fan temperature level, so it won't turn the fan on anyway. But I wasn't sure if it was the fan, or the switch, or something else at fault. So the first thing I did is pop off the fuse cover. Usefully, it tells you exactly what fuses do what, and the fuse for the fan was perfectly fine. I then tried some percussive maintenance on the fan, because you never know, and that made no difference at all either. So that was the easy options out of the way. Now I know this fan does make a bit of a noise when it turns off, which is why percussive maintenance. So I have another solution, which is a jumper wire. So this is just into the connections on the temperature sender. Now I know that the temperature sender in the old radiator had died, and I assumed that this one being new would be fine. As soon as the ignition's on, the fan's running. So I know the fan isn't at fault. I know the fuse isn't at fault. So it must be the brand new temperature sender, which is a bit of a nuisance. I shall order a new one, and in the meantime I'll use this jumper cable. Well, a better one than this one I've got rigged up here. I'll use a jumper cable just to keep things happy and cool. I know it's not ideal, but it means I can use the car without it overheating while I wait for the new part to arrive. Ordered a new temperature sender because the one in the new radiator I fitted doesn't appear to work. The old one also didn't appear to work. And when I say temperature sender, I mean when these get to a certain temperature they turn the fan on, so I suppose really it's a fan switch temperature sender to give it its full name. You must be aware when you get these, they do look superficially the same, the diameters and such are very similar, but the older style radiator, like the one I removed, has shorter legs on it than the newer style, like the one I'm fitting. And this is because of the locking thing. On the old one, it's quite thin, and the legs don't need to be very long to clear that. On the new one, it's quite a lot bulkier. I'll bring the old one in here. You can see there's quite a lot of thickness difference there. So if you've got one of these newer radiators which are wider than the older style ones, you do need those longer legs, otherwise you can't plug it in. At the moment, I have a little jumper cable here, which is just a piece of wire of suitable thickness with two spade connectors on the end. And that just means the fan is running all the time the ignition is on. Not an ideal solution, but it saved me while I've been waiting for the new part to arrive. Let me show you what happens when you turn the ignition on. going to boil a kettle of water. And down here I've got the old sender, which I think is duff, that's like the old radiator, and a little teacup down there. The ignition is on, so when I put the sender into the hot water, it should turn the fan on once the sender gets up to the full temperature of the boiling water. I think these senders are supposed to come at 88 degrees Celsius, that is. And that's doing absolutely nothing, which sort of tells you that's a duff switch. Oh yeah, that's quite hot. So this one's a brand new one. I shouldn't have to reboil the water. Well, that's either a duff sender or there's another problem. That is strange. Because this should be registering as much too hot. And it's not. I'm going to have to try this a different way. Normally, this shows me whether or not things are working, but I'm not going to squeak out of this, so I think I'll get the multimeter and give that a try. I've tried it with the car running, and I've tried it just on, with the ignition on, and I'm not getting a squeak. But if I plug the jumper back in, the fan comes on straight away. And this sort of thing normally means the switch has failed. I don't know, it seems a bit confused on this one. Normally you dunk it in boiling water. These are supposed to come at 88 degrees C, so the water should be hot enough. I know if I bridge the connections that go to the fan switch that everything comes on like it should do. I know when the everything's plugged into the fan switch, I know that the temperature gauge actually works and shows me what the temperature is. It's possible that the new one I've bought is already broken before I've done anything with it. It's possible the new one in the radiator was broken before I'd done anything with it. And it's possible the one out of the old radiator just failed. But it also seems unlikely. This feels like there's something I'm missing, and I'm not sure what. So I'll get the multimeter and I'll do some testing on these switches and see if they're actually working. If the switches are working, then that's very confusing, because I don't know what would cause the fan switch not to trigger the fan. Even when the gauge is showing the car is overheating, the fan does not come on if you've got it connected to a fan switch. And if you leave it, you can actually hear the coolant boiling. So I know the gauge isn't lying. I know the gauge is telling me that the system is definitely overheating. So this one's a bit of a head scratcher for me. I'll do some testing and I'll come back. Just taking the car for a spin, get it warmed up. I've put my jumper cable back in because I can't get any life out of any of these switches. I think they're all duff, which is incredibly annoying. So for now the jumper cable will have to do, and I'll see if I can get another switch that actually works. It is a bit strange though, because that means that the switch in the old radiator doesn't surprise me that much. There was a lot of gunk in the system, so, you know, maybe it was just worn out. The one in the new radiator, that annoyed me because that looks like it's been untouched, and the brand new one has certainly annoyed me because there's no reason for a brand new part to have failed. But even with the multimeter, they're not showing anything at all. I've had them in water that's actually actively boiling, and none of them are reading anything. There's no change in the reading either. It's, I don't know. They all just seem to be broken. Oh well. For now, we'll just have to make do with this. It's not ideal, but until I can get a working switch, it'll have to work. The other thing I did notice is when it was really hot, this cap is hissing, and I think that's because this blue seal in here, and I don't think that's right. It feels like hard plastic. I don't think that's working, but I don't think that would cause the problem with the fan switch. I think the issue is actually the fan switches themselves, but I will get a new cap anyway now that I've noticed that. But you can hear it's happily working away, bringing the temperature down. I mean, the one good thing is, when I've got that running, the temperature gauge doesn't really get above a third, so yeah. Yeah, you can see it's not been in anything before. That's a brand new part, but it just doesn't seem to want to work, and I don't really know why.